What is up, and welcome to the Red and Bold Show. I am your host, Marc Adams. I'm joined by my co-host, Anthony Robertson. We are excited to be here today to talk about the 1-0 undefeated San Francisco 49ers. Ant, how's it going, my friend?
It's going good. And it's crazy because I do film breakdowns over on Patreon, and I did my first half offense yesterday, and it was good. It was good. But then when I did defense today, and I just posted it on my Patreon literally 5 minutes ago, but I was so impressed with the 49ers defense and defensive players and the way they executed. It was hard to find negative plays a lot of times. I mean, there was some things here and there, missed tackles. Maybe they took the wrong route, but for the most part, it was so good. And I even said during it, this is so much different than last year with Steve Wilks' defense. And I don't want to be that guy to Steve Wilks, but it's just an overall different feel. I know it was just week one, but man, it was impressive. And I'm curious to see what happens when I get into the second half film breakdown. You see a little bit more than just watching it, but yeah, it was really good. I was impressed.
Well, that takes us right into the perfect segue here. Is the defense back? I'm not talking about Steve Wilks' defense. I'm talking about the Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans, that dominant 49ers defense. Are they back?
I think so. I mean, the way that they were playing in this game, there were some breakdowns when you looked at that third drive of the game with the way that the Aaron Rodgers was able to get some first downs on third down and take advantage of getting Garrett Wilson open. But even some of those plays, Deommodore Lenoir is in the hip pocket and just not able to make the overall play. Like, it takes Pro Bowl, all pro caliber players to beat Lenoir on those plays. So I think they are. I think they're back. I think this defense is a lot better than we give them credit for. And even some of the weaknesses that you see within the defense, they're going to get better, because when you look at a guy like George Odom, who had a couple mistakes, that's for sure, you're going to have Talanoa Hufanga at some point, and then you're going to get a little bit better at the position. So, yeah, this defense is so back. I'm very excited about what they can do, and they're going to have a tough test, coming up. I don't want to get too much into Minnesota, but they're going to have a tough test this week with Justin Jefferson and that group. But wow, yeah, I was impressed. They kept Aaron Rodgers confused. There's one play. It's so funny. They're showing a cover 4 look, and I completely thought it was cover 4. I said it was cover 4 on my breakdown. Aaron Rodgers thought it was cover 4 because he looking for the right guy to beat the cover 4, and it was cover 2, and he completely tricked Aaron Rodgers, and it got me too. Just fantastic post to pre to post snap looks. Yeah, they're back.
Yeah, they were impressive. The run defense was back, and I was glad to see that. And that kind of sparked everything else. I mean, to me, the weakness of the defense was the pass rush, and it certainly wasn't weak. I mean, it wasn't. It took them a little while to get going there, but the secondary was solid. Yeah, I mean, you're right about those completions from Aaron Rodgers. Those were great throws, great catches, and you kind of had this feeling even early on when they were completing some of those passes. It was like, man, every catch has been contested for the most part. They had a few open receivers, but by and large, those catches were contested, and that certainly seemed to be something that, for me, I was thinking, well, this has to be a good thing. And then as the game went on, that started to catch up with the Jets.
Yeah, it did. I mean, that's the thing, right? It was last year. You would look at the defense and Steve Wilks, they would allow catches underneath, they would make tackles, and it was kind of like that's just how they went about business. This time, if you made a tackle, someone was on you before you had a chance to get any yards. I don't know how much yak yards that the Jets actually had, but I don't think it was that much. 49ers are right there to make plays. And even when it was a breakdown in coverage or someone got open, somebody else was there. It was just one of those things where the defense is rallying to the football. They look hyper aggressive. They're communicating, they're competing. I think there could be a little bit more communication. I think there was a couple of times where maybe Deommodore Lenoir got into the wrong spot, or Jair Brown, they didn't communicate with each other as much as they should. And this is why Fred Warner says over communicate, because you got to make sure you talk on the field. But it's a far cry from last year where they were allowed to check things out underneath. And you brought up the pass rush. The pass rush, yeah, it wasn't going to get home as much as it normally could because Aaron Rodgers was getting rid of the football at 2.3 seconds. Not a lot of time
Mm,
for a pass rush to get home, but
yeah.
when they had their opportunities, they got to him. They flustered him. They got him out of the pocket, and that's what you have to do. And I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Josh is in the chat and he asked Hufanga could return this week. Is that I haven't heard that. Did you say something that he's reacting to, or
I
Did you hear that somewhere else?
I think he's just thinking because Kyle Shanahan said on his presser yesterday that Hufanga wasn't out of the question for this week, that he had a good week of practice last week, and that if things went the right way, there's a potential chance he could play on Sunday. I still think it's a little unlikely for Hufanga. I would put it less likely for him to play than likely. But we are getting to the point now where Hufanga is becoming a real possibility. I think Rams week 3 makes sense. I think that would be probably when I would shoot for it. But hey, if Hufanga feels like he's ready and the 49ers feel like he's ready, it's never too early to see him out there terrorizing the field. And I'm waiting for that moment because the 49ers defense takes another step forward with Hufanga on the field.
Yeah, definitely felt like they missed him a little bit. You mentioned George Odom. He wasn't bad. He just you can tell a difference, and so it'll be nice to get Hufanga back in there. How good was Fred Warner? He seemed like he was not only was he everywhere, but he was explosive. I mean, he was airborne a couple of times. He just seemed to be all over the field.
Yeah, he's the best linebacker in football. It was on display again. Just the recognition pre-snap of what's going to happen. You see him point things out before they ever happen. He moves right as the play is happening, knowing where he's supposed to get. It's just overall just fantastic play from him. He never ceases to amaze me on what he can do. And he talks about potentially getting better every single year, and I wonder how that's a possibility. Yet when you watch him, it seems like he gets a little bit better. And that punch out he had on Breece Hall, getting the ball out, that was fantastic. And it's almost becoming the norm. I saw Fred Warner running towards Breece Hall, watching that game live, and I yelled out, "Here comes the ball!" That's how it is. Fred is just that guy. He was fantastic in this game, and I think it gets overlooked because we're just so used to seeing his greatness. But we're witnessing one of the best linebackers in the history of the NFL. I mean, he's really good when you combine what he does recognition-wise to coverage to how he plays the run. He's special.
Devondre Campbell wasn't bad, but he's no Dre Greenlaw. What did you see there?
Yeah, I actually thought Devondre Campbell played pretty good. And, going through my first half defensive film breakdown, I had heard a lot of people talking about Campbell playing bad. So I put a little emphasis on watching Campbell in this game, and I thought he was in the right spots at the right time. I think sometimes when catches happen around you, it automatically goes right on your head that it was your fault, but that's not entirely accurate. So when you're watching the game live, you might see one thing, or you might see him, hey, he overran this play, he should have been there. But his actual job was to make sure he made the play cut inside, not to make the tackle. That's a hard thing for people to understand. Sometimes linebackers' jobs, not always to make the tackle, but sometimes to play selfless so that somebody else can make the tackle. And that's one of the tough things. But I thought Campbell did a good job. Is it going to be Dre Greenlaw levels? No, that's just not possible. Dre's special. And could Campbell clean up a little bit of the tackling? Yeah, he could. He got stiff-armed on the sideline. I didn't like that play a whole lot. But for the most part, right place, right time, pretty good in coverage, carrying. There's one play he's carrying Allen Lazard up the seam, and he was right on top of him. So he did a good job. So overall, good play by Devondre Campbell.
Who was better, Diameter Lenore or Charvarius Ward?
I think Charvarius Ward's better in this game. They just didn't even test him. I mean, they didn't even want to look that way. It's kind of like on The Hangover, where you're telling them, don't even look at the card. Don't look at me either. I mean, that's kind of what it was like for Charvarius Ward. And, Lenore's good, really good. And he made a play on the football. That was fantastic. Getting the ball popped in the air for DFF's interception. But I did see a couple breakdowns with Diameter Lenore. I think Charvarius Ward had the better game. I think Diameter Lenore, though, is a guy that's going to consistently get better and better. And he's asked to do a lot, and he does it at a high level. So Charvarius Ward's better in this game, but Diameter Lenore is pretty darn good too.
Yeah, the tipped ball that turned into an interception by, of all people, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. That was a great play.
It was. And you know what? You got to give credit to DFF. I mean, it's tough sometimes. DFF, He's not great against the run, but one area he is good is in coverage. He played 12 snaps, and I thought he did pretty good in those 12 snaps. Not always great when it came to stopping the run, but right place, right time, and you got to make a play on the football, and he did. So you got to tip the cap to DFF. He got it done in this game, and that's what the 49ers needed him to do. And so, yeah, that was a fantastic play. Deommodore Lenoir was all over that Garrett Wilson route, and DFF, right place, right time, make a play. Good job.
Yeah, and it was a big play. What did you see from Isaac Yedem?
I thought Isaac Yedem had a good game. They didn't really test him a whole lot. They got him a little bit on that Allen Lazard play up the sideline. I think he wishes he would have been more in phase. I don't think he thought that throw was going to happen, but you're going against Aaron Rodgers, and throws that shouldn't normally happen or that a normal quarterback would look off. He's not looking off because he can thread the needle. And he was trying to play the sideline as a second defender, but he gave a little bit too much space. And if he would have been a little bit closer to Lazard, then that play wouldn't have happened. But it took a great throw to get it done. I thought overall, though, Yedem was pretty good when it came to helping in the run game, and he was good in coverage. And as far as getting out there and getting his first work of the year, because he didn't have any preseason, I thought he looked pretty good. And I'm excited about our third cornerback potential, because it has been a real problem for the 49ers in recent memory. But I think they felt really comfortable with Yedem. They let him go out there and go against some of the best guys like Garrett Wilson, and he held his own. And that's what you need, especially with a guy like Yedem who says he wants to play in San Francisco for years to come. You're going to have some question marks about Charvarius Ward or Deommodore Lenoir next year. Maybe Yedem could be a long-term answer for the 49ers if he plays really well this season. But the cornerback room depth is definitely not a problem.
I didn't think Aaron Rodgers was as bad as other people are seeming to believe. There were some drop passes. He didn't have a whole lot of snaps. I mean, because the 49ers just hogged the ball. But there were a few pretty throws, like one of those third down throws. Then there was the offsides that he had the free play and he went deep. That was just classic Aaron Rodgers. But when he was when they were moving him out of the pocket, he looked like he was struggling to run.
Yeah, he's definitely not as nimble, not as athletic as he used to be. It usually takes you a while to get over an Achilles, and 41 years old, that's going to be really hard. I thought Aaron Rodgers did a pretty good job as far as recognition. He still got the mental capacity to read defenses and make the right reads. I do think there was some footballs that should have been caught. I think there's going to be games where he lights it up this season. I think he's going to have some good football games against certain defenses this year. I don't think he's washed, but I think against a really good defense like the 49ers, they just make it difficult on you. Your players have to play a lot more perfect than they normally would. You can't make mistakes. And I think sometimes that got to the Jets. So do I think Rodgers is as good as he used to be? I don't. Do I think Rodgers is still good enough to be pretty good enough to maybe get this team to the playoffs? That I do think that's possible. But yeah, you're right. Rodgers didn't look bad in this game. I just don't think he looked great either. I think he's kind of settling in now to where he is at 41 years old. And, if Father Time catches everyone, for Tom Brady, it took a little bit longer. But for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it seems like it could be catching up a little bit. Maybe he's now, around 10 as far as top 10 quarterbacks instead of up there amongst the best in the league.
Yeah, Brady was different because he was never mobile and he really was never touched that much. I mean, he would get rid of the ball so fast, but yeah, I saw some things that if I was a Jets fan, I would be encouraged by with Rodgers. I just think they played a really good defense. What did you think about the defensive line for the 49ers? I've heard some people saying that they look like they're as good as they've been in a few years. What did you think? I mean, they were missing one guy, I guess. I think they were only missing one. But what did you think of them?
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good. Malik Collins had some real flash plays, playing good against the run. Same with Javon Hargrave. I thought he played the run better this game than he played for most of last season. I think that was encouraging. Jordan Elliott was a penetrator. He caused problems. And, Kevin Givens held up against the double teams when he got doubled. overall, I thought they did a good job. And then we had good edges set by the edge defenders. I think a couple of times they got to Floyd, they double teamed him, got a little bit of a push. But when they did, guys like Hargrave and others were able to win team defense. And so I thought the defense looked good. I thought the defensive line looked superb. And I think they're only going to get better. The more chemistry they get working together, it's going to work out a lot better. But yeah, far superior to last year as far as stopping the run. And I look for that to continue as we move forward, as they just get more and more used to playing together. And the good thing was we are missing Yetur Gross-Matos in this game, yet the 49ers got good play from a guy off the practice squad in Sam Okawanu. And Robert Beal, he didn't hurt the team. So those are good things for the 49ers moving forward. And I think part of the reason why they went ahead and made a roster move today, and went ahead and brought an offensive tackle onto the practice squad and let go one of the defensive ends, because they seen what they had from Robert Beal. They seen what they had from Okawanu, and I think they're feeling a little bit more comfortable. And hopefully that means Gross-Matos is close to coming back.
You get extra points for saying Okinawu. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I when the 49ers finally moved on from Garoppolo, I said something in an article one time about, that I was glad that I didn't have to spell Garoppolo anymore. And my editor, David Bonilla, he named a couple of others that I don't remember who it was, but some that he always hated having to spell. And of course, then there's Manu Tuiasosopo back from the 80s. I would have hated to have to write his name too much. Let's go to the offensive side, and we have some questions in here that we'll get to as well. Christian McCaffrey did not play. It turned out that was fine. I wouldn't want the 49ers to get in the habit of not playing him because they're going to need him eventually. He says that he's preparing as if he's going to play this week, but I would be shocked, especially with that Achilles thing going on. That concerns me. Is there a possibility that with the next two games being on turf that they hold him out of both of those?
I think it is possible. I think that this week definitely seems like it's going to become more likely that he sits. Now, we'll see what happens. I know that he's been limited at practice. And with tendonitis, you just don't know how it's going to feel from day to day. I think the 49ers want to be careful with this, so they're going to evaluate what games they can win without Christian McCaffrey and what games they can't. I think the Minnesota Vikings game, they don't play good in Minnesota historically as a franchise, but I think that matching up against this team that's very aggressive when it comes to the blitz, being able to use Jordan Mason to run the ball and kind of wear them down, I think could be something they do. So I think it's probably more to the unlikely that he plays this week. I think Rams, a possibility, but it's starting to really feel like week 4 could be the spot where Christian McCaffrey comes back. I never want to count out McCaffrey because he wants to play, but the 49ers are going to be careful with him because they know that it's not weeks 1 through 4 that get you where you need to get. It's the end of the season, and they need Christian McCaffrey healthy for that. And Jordan Mason did a really good job in this football game. So I think they feel a little bit better about the situation, a little bit of sigh of relief. Jordan Mason did great in pass protection as well. So I think, yeah, you're right. It's probably McCaffrey more unlikely to play this week than likely.
Let's talk about Jordan Mason because there have been a lot of 49ers fans calling for him to get more touches. He got plenty on Monday night, and he came through in a huge way. Great game from Mason. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of Isaac Guerendo instead of roughing up Debo any more than they had to. And, with Jordan Mason, you gave him 28 carries or something like that. That's a lot of carries, especially being this was his first start. What did you see from him that you liked, and what would you think? Because I thought I had a question about that, but I don't. But what did you see that you really liked from Jordan Mason, and should they give him a little bit more help if McCaffrey isn't back this week?
Yeah, I think that the 49ers were prepared in case something happened to Christian McCaffrey that he couldn't go. And what they ran with Debo Samuel, I'm pretty sure that was something they wanted in the game plan that Christian McCaffrey was going to run. So they didn't want to eliminate what they were doing where they were moving Debo in the backfield a little bit further out. And so that's part of the reason you got more of Debo than you probably normally would have. I think Jordan Mason looked fantastic in this game. I thought he showed patience. He had good vision. And when it was time for him to get vertical, put his foot in the ground and go, he did that. And so for me, it was a really, really good performance by Jordan Mason. It was pretty good blocking by the offensive line. Of course, there's always going to be your mistakes here and there. But for the most part, they executed. And the thing about Jordan Mason is he seems like he doesn't tire out. I mean, when we got to the fourth quarter, he was still running with the same intensity that he was running with in the first quarter. And he looked like he could have taken another 28, carries. He's a bell cow style back. The Niners needed him in this game to do that. They needed to get around 35 to 40 carries to win this game, and he was able to carry the load. Guerendo got in there for a couple of plays, did not touch the football, that's for sure. Would we like to see Guerendo more? Yes. I think one of the things to remember is he was dealing with a little bit of a groin issue going into this game, so maybe they didn't have him a part of the rotation as much in case he wasn't able to go. So that would be my one consideration about Guerendo, but they're going to need Guerendo if McCaffrey's not going to play over the next couple of weeks. You don't want to have a 28 carry load for Jordan Mason for every game while McCaffrey's out. Keep that around 20. Let Guerendo take care of some of those snaps, work in a little bit of Debo, and I think they'll be just fine. But it's always going to be the 49ers' goal to get 35 to 40 carries. 40 carries, you win the game. That's just the way it is for the 49ers. That's why they love running the football.
Yeah. Speaking of Debo Samuel, he was great as well on Monday night, filling in some spots there with McCaffrey being out. It was like 2021 Debo. I mean, he definitely looks quicker, looks a little slimmer. I liked what I saw from Debo on Monday night, but like I mentioned earlier, would like to see him run the ball a little bit less.
Yeah, I think if that's the McCaffrey effect. If McCaffrey's playing, Debo carries the ball a couple of times. But with McCaffrey out, he's going to take on a load. And you don't want to lose parts of your offense, that you had as part of your game plan because the player's not there. And that's one of the things the 49ers do. Kyle Shanahan knows certain looks are going to work. And it's not always about the carries being as successful, but it's setting up other things. And I think that's one of the things to remember is Debo doesn't always have to have, a big time 7-8 yards on a play. They just want him to give a certain look so that way they can get something else out of that, whether that's a pass play, a play action, whatever it is. They're getting certain looks for certain reasons and trying to locate certain matchups. And so a lot of it's chess. But I do think Debo did the 49ers a solid playing in place of McCaffrey and taking on some of the carries McCaffrey would have had in this game. And Kyle Shanahan feels confident with Debo and Jordan Mason. He's got to get that confidence in Isaac Guerendo. It's not all the way there yet. So right now, Debo's helping bridge the gap. We'll see what happens. Maybe Guerendo will get more spin this week. But yeah, Debo's going to be a part of this offense and probably running the ball a little bit. I think they want to keep him under 5 carries a game, probably around 2 or 3, but we'll see how that goes.
Brock Purdy was really good at times, and there was one drive in particular that he was not good. Missing some throws pretty bad. But what did you think of him? It was a different enough game that it wasn't on his shoulders. He just kind of needed to do what he did and not mess things up. But there was a point where I was like, man, he is dicing the Jets up. And this is a good defense that the Jets have, good secondary. And yet Purdy without Brandon Ayuk being Brandon Ayuk, and we can talk about him in a minute. But he still was having a good game until late when he missed some throws. But at that point, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy played well. When you're coming out week 1 against a really good defense on Monday Night Football, your job is to execute the offense the best way you can. And I think that he did a good job with that. He had some key throws. He had a big third down conversion to Brandon Ayuk. They had to get a conversion on 2nd and 19. He got that, down the field to Jawan Jennings. I thought he was reading the defense well. He was making the proper reads and the proper throws. He took care of the football. Sometimes he got down. Sometimes he ran. It was once again, complete quarterback play from Brock Purdy. There was one throw in this game that I didn't like. It was the one up the seam to Eric Saubert, where it almost got intercepted by Tony Adams. I think that was the one that he tried that I didn't really care for. But other than that, nothing was really dangerous. There was nothing that was at risk. Did a good job taking care of the football. That's your first goal as a quarterback. But I think also he got the 49ers in the proper plays, coming up to the line of scrimmage, canning plays, getting them to the right spots, so that way they could have an effective run game. Yeah, it was overall efficient and good from Brock Purdy, and that's what we've grown to expect. Was it dynamic? No, but it was really, really solid.
All right, so here's the controversial question, because before the game started on Sunday, we found out that Dak Prescott signed this new deal with the Cowboys where he's getting $60 million a year or something like that. People immediately started saying Brock Purdy's going to be getting 65 or whatever. Is Brock Purdy worth 60 million? I mean, Patrick Mahomes, yes. Dak Prescott, no. I do not believe he's worth 60 million. I would pay Brady. I would pay Peyton Manning. I'd pay Montana. I'd probably pay Steve Young that, these days, in their prime, John Elway, Dan Marino, guys like that. But I don't know that I would pay anybody other than Patrick Mahomes right now that much money. Josh Allen still makes too many mistakes. Lamar Jackson disappears at times. So is there anybody that you think would be worth that, much less Brock Purdy?
I think the market's going to say yes. You look at the market and how it's trending, and the money's just going up. You looked at the wide receiver market, it just blew up, and there's guys getting paid more than, any of us would probably say they're worth. But it's just like with all things, you're worth what the market says you're worth and what someone's willing to pay you. I think because Brock Purdy's going to have another really good season this year, he's going to be in line for one of those big contracts. Do I know it's going to be $60 million? I don't. But I do think he's going to get paid pretty handsomely, and really he deserves it. He comes in his rookie year, he gets the team to the NFC Championship game. Last year they get to the Super Bowl, and they're overtime period away from winning that game. And so I think that when you have a quarterback that operates the system the way that he does, you want to hold on to that quarterback. And the 49ers have been looking for this guy for a long time. In 2017, 2018, right? They even tried with Trey Lance with that big trade, and it didn't work out. You got Brock Purdy. You don't want to lose Brock Purdy. So whether he's worth $60 million or not, if someone's willing to pay you that, then I guess you're worth it. And I think that's the realization of it, is $60 million is becoming the new norm for quarterbacks in the NFL. And Brock Purdy, why would he turn down money? I don't understand that. But yeah, $60 million is probably what he's going to get.
Yeah, and we all know how long it's taken them to find the quarterback that they believe is the guy. And so I don't think any of us want to want to have to go back down that road where we're having to look for that guy again. But just curious what you thought about that. So let's talk Brandon Ayuk, because he clearly was not himself. And I mean, that one play, I think Kenny said that Purdy may have had one of the greatest scramble throws for a touchdown that BA dropped. That play would have gone down in history forever. I don't know if he's talking about the one from 2 years ago or if he's talking about the one from Monday night that Ayuk dropped. It was a tough catch. He had a dive, but it hit him in both of his hands. He should have caught that. He had a couple of plays where he looked like Brandon Ayuk, but for the most part, you could tell that he had missed the entire offseason in training camp.
Yeah, I thought he looked rusty. Even the third down conversion that he made, the catch, he just kind of bobbled it. It didn't look like he felt comfortable. I thought he looked a little detached from the game a little bit. And what's up to Roberto? I don't think that he was displaying the same energy that I was used to seeing from Brandon Ayuk, especially last year. And so maybe he's just got to work his way back in. He's got to get a feel again for playing with the 49ers. He's got to get a feel again with playing with Brock Purdy. But that 100% was a catch that Brandon Ayuk would have made last year. You look back at the Philadelphia game, that one that he laid out and caught in the back of the end zone was a much more difficult catch than this one that Brock Purdy put over the top where he could catch it. So do I think he was rusty? Absolutely. I think that he's got some work to do. I think he was a lot more rusty than Trent Williams was, that's for sure. And I expect him to start working his way in. It's not like the 49ers didn't look at him. They still targeted him 5 times. So they were keeping him involved in this offense. But he had a tough assignment going against Sauce Gardner. And I think maybe he was just a little bit less involved as far as mentally than I thought he was going to be. But I look for that rust to knock off in the next couple of weeks and for him to start making big plays as he reacclimates with his 49ers offense.
Yeah, so Kenny said that it was the Week 15 Seattle game that he was talking about. So yeah, I think that I remember which one. Is that the one where he went to his left, turned around, came back to his right, hit Ayuk right in the hands, and he dropped it in the end zone. That would have been an incredible play. Let's get to some questions here real quick. Josh asks, why do we never see a screen to Ayuk?
Yeah, not since his rookie year. Rookie year, we saw some screens, right? He catches the one against Philadelphia, ends up leaping over the player for the touchdown. But for the most part, they haven't used Ayuk that way. They do it to McCaffrey. They do it to Debo. I would say that most likely it's because he's not as good in the open field and not as good as making people miss. Just look at when he catches the ball downfield. He usually gets tackled. There's not too many whole shot plays where Debo, McCaffrey, and others can make plays like that. Kittle is a better screen guy, I think, than Brandon Ayuk. So I think they're just looking at his skill set, looking what he does well. And we got 3 other guys that are better at it. Let's get them the football. And probably the truth is Jacob Cowing might be better at catching screens and getting some yards at this point than Ayuk. So that's just not what he's used for, but they did it. They tried it his rookie year. They just haven't went back to it since.
Yeah, I think Niners Nation makes a good point here that Ayuk's good in the run blocking on screen. So, yeah, he's one of the top blocking wide receivers in the league. He might be the second best to his teammate, Jawan Jennings. Some interesting things here. JD says Ayuk is there to stretch the field. Kenny, he's an elite blocker. So yeah, it's he definitely wasn't himself. His crisp route runner, yeah, glides. He looks so smooth when he runs, but he'll get back into shape. I'm not too concerned about that. Let's see. Josh asked, how much did Kyle yell at Mason for spilling the beans about starting?
I'm sure they just, kind of talked to him about it a little bit and just, let him know that, hey, you need to clear this thing up because people are going to infer something else. And I think it's likely that they told him, hey, if Christian can't go, you're going to start. It was something like that. So they were mentally trying to get him prepared to start in case Christian couldn't go. But we know with the way things are in the NFL, you've got to make sure you disclose everything. So if there was a real possibility that he wasn't going to play, they needed to list him as doubtful or out. And so I think that's the big claim. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know why it's a big deal. Jordan Mason's allowed to be told that, hey, you're going to start because let's be honest, the 49ers could have said, yeah, Jordan Mason was going to start because we were going to limit the snaps of Christian McCaffrey. To me, I don't think it's as big a deal. They'll just probably tell him from now on, let's keep things, in-house and between us. But I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I had somebody reach out and ask, are the 49ers going to get in trouble over this? And I just don't see that happening. It's not like, I mean, they were open about the injury. I mean, they released that late last week, that there was the calf and the Achilles. And so they weren't hiding his injury. So I know that is looked down upon. But the problem I think that the NFL would be when it comes to the gambling side or the fantasy football side. But even then, I mean, it was kind of touch and go. So they could easily say, hey, we just told Mason that you might start. And he, whatever he said. But so I don't think there's going to be anything that comes from that. Notorious GAV said, acknowledge Juice. All right, we acknowledge him. Hey, he had a huge play. And the thing that I liked was that, there was that one play that Juice was wide open down the right side. And I think that Joe Buck or Troy Aikman, one of them said, hey, you watch this. Kyle Shanahan's going to come back to that. And then sure enough, it was on the opposite side. But great play, huge play for the 49ers.
Yeah, it was a little bit interesting. I think it was Eric Branch asked Kyle Shanahan about if that was a new play, the one to Juice, and he was like, "How long have you been here?" You know what I mean? It's like this is something that they run. You know, Johnny Dell actually put up the graphic of the actual play and call on his Twitter account. This is something the 49ers go to, and it's much respect for Kyle Juszczyk. There's not another fullback in this league that can do the things that Kyle Juszczyk does, and why he's so dynamic within this 49ers offense. And it was nice to see him active. He had a couple catches in this game. So it wasn't just the blocking aspect, which we know he's really good at, but also he was able to take advantage of some mismatches, which we knew could be an option for the 49ers. Kittle, Juice against those safeties and linebackers was advantage 49ers. And they took advantage of it. And Kyle Juszczyk is still proving that he is a huge weapon for the 49ers. And I think he's still in their future plans. I think this year, next year for sure. And then we'll see. But I'm hoping that they're going to keep him for the remainder of his career because he's still doing it at a high level.
Zillaby said, "Dude, how is Juwan Jennings always open?" Yeah, he is. It's so crazy. The guy, he runs really good routes, and because he doesn't have the speed that the other guys have, but he's huge. He comes up big, I lose words for him. He could have been the Super Bowl MVP, which like who would have thought that? But like he was big on Monday night, just like he always is. He comes up big in big moments.
Yeah, that's why they love him. You know, when it's time to play dirty, get dirty blocking, he does a great job. He's one of the best blockers in the NFL. And then when it comes time to get open, he can do that too. And he's got a unique way that he runs routes. It doesn't look like everybody else. He looks like he's big and slow, but there's some quickness coming in and out of his breaks that create separation. And you see cornerbacks struggle with it a lot, and they struggled with Juwan, but he also understands leverage. He understands coverage, so he knows where to sit down and how to get space and when to work back to the quarterback and when not. I mean, there's just a really good feel for what he's doing. Maybe that comes back to his time playing quarterback when he was younger, because he does a very good job of sitting down in zone, presents himself really nice, makes his numbers nice and big for Brock. He's a nice big target. Yeah, Juwan Jennings is a really good player, and the 49ers continue to just have so much success with him. That 1-2-3 punch is still so good. And then we've got good players after that. And so I think the 49ers are just very excited about having Juwan for the next couple of years. The things he does fly under the radar a lot of times, but he's really good.
Yeah, I like Josh's comparison here of Jennings and Anquan Bolden in terms of not just route running, but the strength of his hands, the strength of which he plays. Both guys would throw tacklers down, like stiff arm them, throw them out of the way, and so you got to love that kind of thing. Anquan Bolden was so good. Anquan Bolden was better than Michael Crabtree ever wanted to be. Sorry. The 49ers 2024 ask, can you see Garindo replacing Kyle Juszczyk?
No, I don't think so. I know this got floated around a little bit during the offseason. I think that Larry Krueger saw different positions for Isaac Garindo. He saw him as a fullback, maybe a tight end at times. And I think this happens with players who are big and maybe a little bit out of the normal for a normal running back or position. But just listening to what Bobby T has said about him and what Kyle Shanahan have said, they expect him to be a running back. And we saw that dynamic speed on display with that 93-yard kick return. He ran really good in that preseason game versus the Raiders. I think he's destined to be one of the 49ers running backs moving forward. And at some point, they're going to have to make a tough decision with Jordan Mason, because somebody in this league is going to be willing to pay him, and you need the next guy to step up. And I think that's where Garindo will step up. I have no idea where they're going to find the next fullback for this 49ers team. Kyle Juszczyk, they just don't grow on trees. It's like Deebo Samuel. These guys are unicorns. I don't know how you find another one to replace them, and you may never find anyone that's even close. So I don't know who replaces Juszczyk, and I don't know what Kyle Shanahan does once Juszczyk is actually done, but I don't think it's going to be Garindo.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's see. 49er Classic says Pooney will help McKivitz after they develop their chemistry. Yeah, let's talk about the offensive line, because this was somebody asked me for our 49ers Web Zone mailbag what my biggest surprise was from the game. And I listed a few things, but one of them was the offensive line. I was kind of not shocked, but I was a little surprised that they were so dominant. Uh, Namely because I'm not a fan of McKivitz. I mean, I like him personally. I'm not a fan of him being a starting right tackle for the 49ers. I was surprised that I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was that Trent Williams played so many snaps and was so dominant. Um, and then Pooney, man, he was great. And so the offensive line as a whole was really good on Monday night. What did you think about them? What did you like? What did you not like?
I liked him. I mean, I think the one player that probably struggled the most was Jake Brendel. I think some of the things that has been problems for him were a problem in this game. And there's one play where Javon Kinlaw absolutely throws him back like 3 yards, and he just goes tumbling on the ground. Those things can't happen in the NFL. So I think he's still a little bit of a weak link. There's things he does well, but when you look at the other offensive linemen, Dominic Pooney was fantastic in this game. He answered the call of a young rookie. I mean, this was one of those things that Chris Verster said, is he going to be able to handle the bright lights of Monday Night Football? That was one of his question marks. He can handle it. Dominic Pooney is a very solid player. We got to go from talking about this guy being a really good rookie to talking about him in the conversation for Pro Bowl at some point. I mean, that's how good he might be. A Pro Bowl player this year. Phenomenal. Colt McKivitz was way better than we've seen Colt McKivitz. He blocked good in this football game. He was really good run blocking, and then he held his own. Is there a couple Colt McKivitz-esque mistakes? Absolutely. Quinnen Williams got him, threw his hands off, took care of him, especially when you're dealing with a guy like Quinnen Williams. He's not going to beat you up the field with speed. You have to worry about him working inside, which he did. So McKivitz, recognition a little bit better. Technique needs to get a little bit better when dealing with a bigger D end. But I thought he looked really good. Then you got question marks now with Banks. He's got the calf contusion, but he held up. Trent Williams was Trent Williams. I mean, the guy stepped in off the street and handled business over there. It was phenomenal. And I got to give kudos to Spencer Burford because Spencer Burford came in, played left guard, which we have not seen him play left guard at all. And he was clean. And not just that, he had a trap play where he had to come and he laid out Jermaine Johnson. I mean, put him on his back. That's the kind of stuff you have to see. And I love Spencer Burford being able to be plug and play. 49ers got a solid offensive line production, and it looks like they got solid depth on the interior. I'm pretty excited about the offensive line moving forward. Now they got to stack good reps. But yeah, it was a good showing for the offensive line.
Yeah, they were impressive. And I do have to give McKivitz credit because he was better, as you said, better than we've seen him before. Real quick, before we take off here, what are you seeing with the 49ers and Vikings? What makes you nervous other than having to cover Jefferson? I mean, because that's the obvious.
Right.
But
I think it's interesting. Go ahead.
What makes you nervous, and what has you salivating? Like, oh, we're really going to go after this.
I think if I was going to look at one thing that makes me a little bit nervous is probably going to be the aggressive nature of that defense. You just don't know what you're going to get. They come from weird places. They run weird coverages. The blitz schemes are very complicated. And so dealing with all that's always a unique experience. I think if there was one area I was going to look at, it's that. Plus, their linebacker coach is Mike Pettin. Mike Pettin also used to coach with Kyle Shanahan in Cleveland, and they don't exactly have the best relationship. So Mike Pettin's going to be motivated for this. So they have an understanding of Kyle a little bit. There are other unique coaching matchups in this as well. You've got Brandon Staley, who was on staff with Kevin O'Connell with the Rams. So there's going to be a deep understanding of Kevin O'Connell's offense, which isn't too different from Sean McVay's offense. So there's a lot of coaching aspects to this. I think the other thing that's going to help the 49ers in this game is there's a likelihood Jordan Addison doesn't play. And with Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson potentially out, and we know Hawkinson is out, that means Justin Jefferson has only got Jalen Naylor. That's the only guy he's really got that's a bona fide threat next to him. So the 49ers could, eliminate a little bit of Justin Jefferson by giving him extra attention. I think that makes it a little bit easier for the 49ers there. But I think the biggest concern is how aggressive is that defense going to be for Minnesota, and what unique looks are they going to give the 49ers, because that was a problem last year. However, the 49ers had no Deebo Samuel last year, no Trent Williams last year.
Yep.
And so I think that those will be big reasons why the 49ers will have a better opportunity to win this game. But they've got to overcome. Minnesota is a house of horrors for the 49ers, and they've got to overcome that streak of not being able to win in Minnesota. But I think they can. I think they can do it this year.
Yeah, I think it was Kenny who I'm looking back. I don't see Kenny. When was the last time the 49ers won in Minnesota? He threw that out earlier, and I can't see it anymore. But it was a long time ago. Whenever maybe Kenny fell asleep, but there he is. 1992, the last time the 49ers won in Minnesota. So that's crazy. And then look at the Notorious here with the math. The fast math, 32 years ago. Well done, Notorious. I would have needed a calculator to do that. Crazy. Yeah, 1992. Oh, man. Well, hopefully things will change. Hopefully the 49ers defense will have Sam Darnold seeing ghosts again and have his head spinning. He played really well in week 1, but he's playing against the Giants, not the 49ers. So we'll see how that goes. Anything else, Ant, before we take off?
Yeah, that's going to be one of the fun things, is going to be seeing how Kyle Shanahan and Brian Griese inform their defense about who Sam Darnold is. And Sam Darnold got a lot of reps against the 49ers defense last year, but this ain't the same defense. This isn't Steve Wilkes' defense. This is a more aggressive defense. They've got Christian Darrisaw. He's a really good offensive lineman. But other than that, it's going to be some fun matches for the 49ers defensive line. And, the Giants were able to get after Sam Darnold a little bit. And I think the 49ers D-line will be as well. I think it's going to be a fun one. And I'm excited about the game against Minnesota. Hopefully 32 years has been long enough and the 49ers can finally get a big win in Minnesota.
Yeah, Roberto said Steve Young and Amp Lee. Nice. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will be back next Wednesday at the same time, hopefully celebrating the 49ers moving to 2-0. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend with all the football on,